Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. No one company isn't forcing diversity into all your favorite video games.
Is that right?
I want to use my last section here to kind of outline the tools and the techniques that I use and that my company has used to make representation very much a staple of our offering outside of just the work that we do internally.
I presented a video recently talking about Sweet Baby Inc. There are thousands upon thousands of videos highlighting what it is and the controversy surrounding it, and I'm going to be touching on a little bit of one of the issues behind this company and the reason people have a problem with it. Now, it recently came out that the co-founder, apparently at some conference, explained in full length for almost half an hour the tactics that her and her company use, or what she stands behind when it comes to the methods to accomplishing what she's setting out to do. And after watching this, because I wanted to also see it in context, I try my best when the sources are available to do that, because I can understand something can have a different meaning. But after seeing the context, that actually made it worse. And I'm going to be going by dissecting what she said and trying to explain why this is a problem. See, people on the outside looking in are probably thinking, or other people are probably explaining to them, that people who have an issue with Sweet Baby Inc. are discriminatory and that they don't like diversity, but that's not the case. Maybe it is for a very small sect of people, but it's not the case for me. It's not a case for a lot of people who are diverse themselves by their own description, and by there I mean people like Sweet Baby Inc. So let's go into the video that's making rounds right now and hear what the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc. has to say. So the source of the video will be linked. You can go through and watch the video yourself as well, but I'm going to be highlighting the end of it because it seems to be what a lot of people are talking about. But feel free to watch it yourselves. Form your own opinion. Please don't just take what I say at face value. Do your own research. And then if you'd like, you can come back and hear what I have to say, what my opinion is on the matter. So I'm not sure why the GDC has the comments turned off. I mean, I can guess why, but I don't know if this was from a long time ago or if this is just recently they turned off the comments and the likes and dislikes due to the backlash that this person and their company has been getting. That's neither here nor there. Now, it does say that this conference, it's the Gamer Developers Conference, and it took place March 18th to 22, 2019. It's 2024 at the time this video is being made.
I want to use my last section here to kind of outline the tools and the techniques that I use and that my company has used to make representation very much a staple of our offering outside of just the work that we do internally.
So for people who are considered normies or people who are not a part of the internet sphere, you just happen to find my video, what she means by representation is people or groups of people who she feels is underrepresented. So we know in the USA, or we've learned in the USA, also looking back at history, the USA was predominantly white because Europeans settled here, and aside from the Native Americans already being here, they also made it their home. And so after more people coming in, them having families and stuff happening, the predominant ethnicity of the United States of America became lighter skinned people, Caucasian people, whatever you want to call it. Basically Europeans, British people that came down here and are now calling themselves Americans because you're now in another land. We know the history of independence from Britain when America became America, and we know that. But the majority of those people are white. Just like you go to other countries like India and China, Nigeria, Uganda, everybody, there's an ethnic majority. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's a region. People naturally exist there, inhabit the area. So that's normal, right? Over time, as we all know, especially with the whole slave situation, which was awful, the black people here became independent as well. Thank goodness. They still make up a minority, even though there's so many of them, there's so many other ethnicities here, they still make up a minority, but they are Americans too. They're no longer Africans, they're Americans. Because they're a minority, and because this was still a majority, and they have that very horrible history and strained relationship with the black people and the white people here. The white people, not all of them liked black people. They were like, nah, because there's this weird thing that happens across all of humanity, and it's called tribalism. You will see it in every country across every skin tone. At the core, it's not really a bad thing because it's how people procreate and keep their families alive. It was something embedded within humanity and animals for a very long time. But as people progressed and they became more intellectual, you realize it's quite stupid and ignorant to hate someone on a very primal level for no reason other than they look different than you. where it had a purpose before, it really doesn't have as much of a purpose now, although you can argue sometimes that it does, because let's say you're in a small Chinese town and somebody that doesn't look like the rest of you comes along and they're not from your region, nobody knows them, they look completely different, there's nothing, the culture's different, so what you may see as moral, they may not see as moral. They can commit what you decipher as a crime and then just leave, like what happens in a lot of countries when people just come there illegally. But anyway, not even gonna get into that. So you have this tribal mentality, and also stupid, ignorant people thinking that they're better than someone else just because they have a certain color and that person doesn't. So they would exclude certain minorities, Black, Chinese, even Irish, and Italian, from being in certain forms of entertainment because to them, they were like, ugh, you're scum. You're not as human as we are. So as time went on, some people, a lot of people, white and Black, came together and they were like, dude, this is not cool. Like, these people are a part of the country, okay? You use them to help build up the economy as well. They are Americans too, so they should be represented. There's 80% of you to 90% of you. Well, 10% of representation is fair. So over time, people did start doing that. Segregation was done away with. You still had people who were discriminating, but now they're starting to represent people who were underrepresented, people who aren't being represented at all. So that's where this representation thing is coming in. I've spoken to my father about this, and he is like, I don't know what's going on. Like, there's some people who just literally don't know about any of this stuff. So I'm sorry for people who are watching now who think I'm being redundant, but this is for people who just don't know what's going on. Now, you'll see that older movies started having a lot of representation. Surprisingly, movies from even the 50s and 40s were having representation where Black actors were on screen too. Wasn't perfect because they still weren't being treated as well as their white counterparts, but at least we were getting somewhere. And around like the 60s and 70s, I believe, there were a lot of movies that showcased people who were in a minority group or not white playing in roles that they ordinarily wouldn't be able to play in very long time ago. This is representation, it's diversity. Also, when people refer to diversity, it's supposed to mean people from all different walks of life that look different. You're not just all the same types of people. And you can have diversity within an all-Black cast. You can have diversity within an all-white cast. Surprising. Germans, people from Finland, people from Spain, you can have white people from all over the country that are extremely diverse. Cultures are completely different, but they all kind of look similar, but not exactly the same. Same thing across Spanish-speaking people. There are many different Spanish-speaking countries, and there are people who can look different ethnically and have different cultures based on where they come from. That is still diverse. The modern sense of the word diversity means anybody who's not white. Particularly white or male. That is what most people mean, because whenever there is an all-white cast, they claim it's not diverse. Even if the white people in that cast can come from different backgrounds. They want to see Black people, well, Spanish people should have more of a percentage, but anyway, they want to see Black people, Mexican people, Chinese people, Korean people. They want to see it all a mix of people, even when it doesn't have anything to do with the story. So then people started getting a little bit upset over this because diversity can be a beautiful thing. I love people from that. I grew up with all different types of people. I grew up in a diverse home, even though my country has a very vast majority ethnically as well. In the region I grew up in, it was completely diverse. And we didn't have the whole racial thing there. We had like a classist society, but coming here, I learned about the whole racial thing, and people were very strangely addicted to the color of people's skin. And it has become a situation where people like this, the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc., are fixating on diversity as it appeals to skin color. You just have to have someone that looks a certain way. To hell with the character building or the story building, you just have to meet a quota of people being gay, Black, whatever else you can check off. Like, you're just catching fish in a barrel and making sure they're all different colors just for the hell of it. And that's where people start to get annoyed, because no longer are you concentrating on just making good stories, but you're fixating on the way people look, but you're also demonizing and ostracizing one group of people who are white people. And you may think I hear some people typing already in the comments, the very fact that you're doing that is a problem, because you haven't even heard what I had to say, but you already hear that. And because I say white people, she wanted them. That's not what it is. It's not right when it's done to either ethnicity. But that's the background for this, in case anyone is wondering the cliff notes of it.
So first and foremost, if you're in creative development, if you're building a world and a story and you're including characters and concepts that are borrowed or inspired by or based on the lives and the lived experiences of marginalized people, firstly, I would say do not be afraid to create moments that are intentionally targeted and designed to create joy in the marginalized. They are going to appreciate this on a level that your core audience won't, but it doesn't mean that you're going to exclude your core audience in doing that. Do not make it so that marginalized people, when they're playing your game, have to do all of the work to create representation themselves by creating that custom character. And also, don't fall into this trap that I think a lot of people fall into, which is they think, okay, don't worry, we can include everyone by making this like single default universal experience that is universally representative. Because usually like all that means, as it did in the dating example, is that you're aiming at your core demographic and you're probably invisibly leaning towards the dominant societal voice, even if you don't realize it.
A lot of people who I feel make certain stories, they're making the stories because they have a passion to tell those stories. I don't think they're thinking, I mean, I could be wrong, but like as a writer, I love making stories from different point of view. There are sometimes self-inserts that I do based on the culture that I grew up in, so I'll use some of that for my character, or I'll choose someone who has nothing to do with what I look like. Most of the stories I write are from the point of view of animals. I don't think foxkind and wolfkind care one iota how I'm representing them, but I understand it's different because people may see things and feel like they're offensive. So she's saying in this moment, at least I think that's what she's saying, because she's kind of doing what I do and kind of rambling around a little bit, but she's saying don't be afraid to create a story like this for minorities or people who are underrepresented because they'll appreciate it. She's right in a sense, I guess, but I would argue a little bit that if you're doing it primarily to get points with certain minority groups, that your aim is in the wrong direction. There's been a lot of movies and shows and games that have tried to do that, and it's called pandering because it's like you're trying to get shoulder bumping points, like, hey, see, can I come to the cookout, bro? Like, it's very cringy. And people can see through that, and they're like, no. Now, what are you, Hillary Clinton, trying to take freaking hot sauce out of your sleeve to prove that you're down with black people?
What's something that you always carry with you?
Oh yeah, black guys put hot sauce on everything.
Simply press the button on this side of the watch. It delivers a rather liberal spritzing of hot sauce. One blast should be enough to make Caucasian food edible.
Hot sauce in my bag. Extra. Hot sauce in my bag. Extra. Hot sauce in my bag.
Yo, hot sauce, he just pulled up on you. Guard up now, hot sauce. Get him back, Sizzle. Oh, baby.
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people, pandering to black people. Pandering to black people.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah. Hot sauce.
Is it working?
That's kind of fucking weird and borderline racist. So it's by people fumbling over themselves to try and please people who look a certain way, you end up becoming the very thing that you're set against. Not saying every single person have done that, but that's kind of what happens. And that's where we find a lot of movies and TV shows are doing, why a lot of people are hating them, and then people that hear reviewers talking about this and calling it out, they feel as though these people hate minorities, which is not the case. People hate fakeness. They don't like people who are pretending to be something that they're not. Just make a good story. It's okay to consult people to ask about the culture of specific people so that you don't get certain things wrong, so you can have accurate storytelling in terms of historics. I understand that, but just doing it for the sake of saying you're one of them or to please people just because, there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. And I feel like a lot of people who are championing for diversity, they're doing it the wrong way.
And if you're in development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that.
Oh boy, there we go. This is what I'm talking about. Cis hetero white dude. For people who don't know what that is, hetero means someone who is attracted to the opposite sex, which is the majority of people. I'm not trying to be offensive. That's literally what it is. There's a majority and there's a minority. The majority of people who are attracted to people sexually or people who are attracted to the opposite sex. If that weren't the case, we wouldn't be calling the people who are not underrepresented and marginalized, would we? So that's what a hetero is. A white male, we know what that is. A man who is white and who makes up, I guess, the majority or a decent amount of the demographic in the United States of America. And I guess the people, they're talking about the people who held power for most of the time, the people who built this country, descending from the founding fathers because women didn't have as much rights back then. So white men did run this country, just like Japanese men run their country, and Chinese men run their country, and Nigerian men run their country. Why? This is going to trigger a lot of people, but because men are the one who are expected to protect everyone, like that's just how that always happened. Don't shoot the messenger. It across every country. It's hard pressed to find a country that is female led. The reason why is because dudes are stronger than women. It just is what it is. I didn't make it that way. For the longest while, I didn't want that to be the case. But as I grew and my friends hit puberty, and I was able to wrestle them and straddle them to the ground, and they're able to pick me up by my head now and swing me around. Now I realize I'm humbled that, yeah, I'm a woman. I'm not ever going to be as physically strong as a guy. And because of that, yes, you do have a lot of men that abuse that power. That's how a lot of them got there. But you also have the other end of it where women understand that and they want to be protected because they realize they can't. That's where that's coming from. That's why men are the majority. It just so happens in the United States that the people here are white, so the white men are going to be the ones in power. That's where that's coming from for the people who don't know. The cis thing is something recent that came about last few years. I mean, it's not recent, it's existed, but people have, I guess the word cis is now more popularized. Definition here says denoting or relating to a person whose gender identity corresponds with the sex registered for them at birth, not transgender. So if you're born a dude, think you're a dude, you're a dude. That makes you cis. Same thing for a woman. If you were born a dude and you recognize that you are a dude, but you don't want to be a dude, you feel like you're a female, or that you are female, you are not cis. You are trans. I know this might seem very confusing for people who have never heard of any of these terminologies, but that's the best I can do right now with such little time.
And if you're in development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that, do not wait.
What does adjacent mean? I wish she would have expounded on that, because now I'm like actually confused. What do you mean, Asian dudes? Like what does that mean? Adjacent? I know what the word adjacent means, but what does she believe is adjacent to the dominant voice? Just me looking from the outside in, I personally feel like the adjacent or something higher than that would be women or any other marginalized group. Because right now, whatever they say, any marginalized group or women, that's what goes. I feel like it's a really, really bad time to be the white dude. But anyway, that's just me speaking. I don't know. I'm just going off of what I'm observing in media. I didn't even know the whole gaming industry had this problem until very recently, but in movies and entertainment, I've seen that as a situation. So I'm legitimately curious.
In development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that, do not wait until the end to call your consultants. Bring them in at the beginning, and instead of asking them, hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist, or is this...
Oh my God. Oh, no, she did not. So you're essentially assuming that because they fit the hetero, what the frick did she say? The stuff before, the white dude with the straight and all that stuff, you would automatically assume that because that person fits that category, that whatever they've done must be racist. They need to go consult someone because by default, because they fit that category, that demographic, there's a 99% chance that whatever they've done is racist. You're already racist for just existing. Do you not hear how discriminatory that sounds? How ignorant that sounds? Like, imagine if that was being said about somebody else. And that's what I'm talking about. Movies and media, it's the same thing.
Not allowed enough chances to read public discourse on these films by the people that these films were made for.
That's racist.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
That's racist.
And smile in pictures
That
to
is
make everyone feel
a small price
safe
to pay for keeping the peace.
by risking our people to save theirs.
Yes, yes.
It's funny. I can't actually remember the last time you were the one risking something. And by the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to think about changing the name to ex-women.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out.
You will hear celebrities come out and say stuff like this, or studios come out and say stuff like this, when all of us who are not any of those things are coming out and speaking and saying, hey, this is not cool. our voices don't matter apparently. They just automatically claim it's the white dudes that are doing this. Look how horrible they're being. And I'm like, dude, what? All us women from other countries, no less, who are also saying this as loud as can be in our reviews, were either silenced or they pretend as though we don't exist. Imagine if that were the other way around. That's not moral. That's not ethical. And I don't see how people are not seeing this. But maybe now they are seeing it, and that's why people are speaking about it, which is a good thing. Because this kind of behavior, it doesn't look good on anyone. It doesn't look good when it's aimed at anyone. Regardless if it's white hetero or otherwise, it's a really bad look.
This deeply offensive thing we did, deeply offensive, are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Like, ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early.
Okay, so there's nothing inherently wrong by having, like, consulting people about a game and asking people, hey, what is this appropriate? The problem comes when the people who are reviewing stuff like this, their list of what's offensive is going to be very subjective. Me eating meat is highly offensive to many people. Not the majority, but maybe it's the majority of the people who are part of this consultation firm. Maybe most of them are vegan. And so if I'm telling a story and it shows a traditional family sitting around the table eating turkey, the consultation team, they're going to be very offended by this, when the majority of my audience probably wouldn't, because the majority of them eat meat and don't find anything wrong with this. John Wick was a great movie, and I know what I've said in other videos about dogs dying in movies. I don't care if I spoil it for someone. The movie's old by now, so it is what it is. But that was a turning point. That was a catalyst to John Wick doing what he did, and everybody was getting off on the whole revenge thing. I think they did it in a tasteful way. It still hurt and made me cry, and I was triggered by it, but at the same time, it was part of the story. It was integral to the story, and they made up for it. I don't know, maybe they did have a focus group, but had the movie gone with what most people thought when they probably saw the movie, they're like, I don't want this, leave that part out. Probably wouldn't have been as great a movie, because people wouldn't have gotten off on the whole John Wick going to avenge his dog and his wife and everything and just trying to live out his life. That was a big part of it. If you always have to consult people for you making your passion product, you are always going to have someone who is offended by something that you've done. And I feel like that stifles creativity. I have seen on Twitter, because I'm part of like the artist threads and stuff, I always watch people's art. I love art. I'm an artist too. So I enjoy watching other people and seeing their original characters. And a lot of people talk about fat representation. Nothing wrong with that. If you're fat and you want representation, cool, whatever. But this artist actually came out and she made fat characters. Now, I don't know if she's fat. I don't think that matters. You don't have to be fat to draw fat people. Her characters were, they looked like that. And another artist was basically shaming her, vitriolically, might I add, saying that fat people don't look like that, and how dare you? And I think the person's probably fat. It's not fat phobic to say, just based on the profile picture, it kind of looked like that. But she got so offended as a fat person, I'm guessing, that this other artist was, representing fat people, and it's not like she was making fun of them. She was literally just their characters, but they just happened to look like that. And they had a whole story behind them that had nothing to do with them being fat. And I told her, why are you shaming another artist for representing fat people? Like, I thought that this was something that you would I didn't say that because that would probably offend her too. But I thought that this would be something that you would accept with the whole representation thing. And this person also seems to be someone who wants to be represented. She blocked me because I got on her about making fun of another artist and just really bad. Like, it was really bad. So you have people who say that fat people should be represented, but then when you represent fat people, you're still triggered by it and upset by it. So what I'm basically trying to say is you're not going to ever please everyone. There are going to be people who hate your stuff and people who love your stuff. And I think the most important thing is coming out and making a story and then letting the population decide. If 5 to 15% of the population is not down with your work, that means the greater majority is. So why does it matter what the 15% think? I know that seems like a backwards way of thinking about stuff, but we're not talking about something that's going to affect people's lives. We're talking about a video game. If you were making the argument that video games are harmful or they're going to affect people's lives, how is this any different than the radical Christians back then that were saying that Pokemon were satanic and GTA, if people played GTA, it meant they were going to go out there and do those things? Like, I remember, even my mother, the hyper-religious person that she is, when she found out that I had a copy of GTA, she was freaking out because she believed that that was going to open up the doorway for demons to come in. and a whole bunch of shit. And it was like, bro, really? And I remember telling my friends and my uncle, and he was cracking up. He was like, just hide it. Just don't let her know you have it. But it's kind of bizarre. It's like very ignorant. It's weird. And it kind of feels like people are leaning towards that, if that's what you really believe, that the game is going to somehow harm people. It's a game. It's fantasy. We're aware of that. If someone makes a game and they've truly done something that is egregious, then guess what? They're gonna get backlash for that. You don't even have to worry about it. The population, the vast majority, if they know it's something horrible, they're going to correct that person. Or they're just not gonna buy their game. They lose money, and guess what happens when they lose money or people boycott it? They don't make it again. They switch to doing something else because they realize, oh crap, people really hated that. I must have done something to take them off. I'm not talking about the vocal people on Twitter that don't even buy the products that they're upset about, if those products are corrected. I'm talking about the vast majority of people who actually use their wallets. Anyway.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
What?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Did she really just go up there on stage and say that? I'm pretty sure she has notes in front of her, which is why she keeps looking down. So you wrote this. You wrote this down, probably looked it over, and decided it was proper class to go up and say this to people. What in the world? I'm gonna rewind that because maybe I didn't hear correctly. Hold on.
Offensive thing we did, deeply offensive. Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Like, ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. Because they have to consider, like, I say that all out as a joke, but it's actually very, very true, because if you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing and who have to deal with mitigating harm and with keeping the sentiment around their game and their project positive, there's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them with both ethically and financially. You could say this is important. And it's also a valid discussion to have, because if you're working with a very thin narrative budget and you work in AAA, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised or dismayed by the amount of money that marketing can give you.
That was very revolting. So terrify people, coerce them by terrifying. Like, I don't understand how, and what harm is she talking about? Because people like to use that word harm. Oh, it's harmful. Oh, it promotes harm. What kind of harm are you talking about? Because we have people nowadays that are claiming that words are harmful. Like, people in my generation are claiming that words hurt and people should go to jail for words. I don't understand. So if that's the case and people have to tiptoe around everything, creativity and art is dead. Why are we getting upset that AI is a thing when humans have already killed art? It feels like AI is bringing it back. I don't know why people are getting upset over that. You've already killed creativity. Let the robots take over now, because clearly you don't care about it anymore. If you have to extort someone or scare someone because you think that their game or something you don't agree with is going to promote harm, but you're not being specific about what harm it's promoting, it kind of sounds as though you're trying to inject your own insecurities into something. One of the latest things I saw, I had a video made about this, but I hadn't published it. I don't know if I am going to, but about the whole Tifa thing, or certain video game females that are, you know, that have great asses and stuff, and I don't find anything wrong with that. As a straight female, I'm okay with that. I like looking at that too. Like looking at the dudes. It's a game. It's not a real person. And even if it was, you still have people like this that are complaining about video game characters, but they'll look at real people like that in real life, which is very confusing to me. What harm is it promoting? You have dolls that you can dress up and dress up as thoughts, and that's completely okay. No one talks about the harm it's creating when little girls dress up their Barbie dolls to look like freaking Nightwalkers. But a video game character has tight clothes on and yoga pants that these people complaining probably wear to gyms anyway to get attention so they can put up creepers on TikTok. They have a problem with that. I just don't understand. What harm is it actually doing? It's a video game. I'm so confused. This feels like a bunch of hypocrisy, but yet we don't know what harm is actually being done. Harm is a very broad term, but when you're talking about words specifically, how words can cause harm, you have to be extremely specific. If it is merely a phrase that offends you, but it's not physically harming you, then you have no right to try and shut down something or alter it because your feelings are hurt. Because the way way you feel might not be the way a lot of other people feel. Just because you didn't learn how to deal with your feelings when someone hurts your fifis doesn't mean that the majority of people out there who have feel the same way. And that's the problem I feel like is taking over and plaguing media, gaming included, because most people have learned how to deal with emotions and learned how to dissect reality, to differentiate fantasy from reality and function as intellectual human beings that can do such. When you're at the level where you don't know how to do that, it means that you are mentally incapacitated and you don't have any say, you shouldn't have any say with creating things or putting out products that are going to influence people as you're calling it. Then you wonder why people are claiming that people like this have an agenda. I hate when people say that. They have an agenda, but then you would look at some of these people and the behaviors and you realize that's the case because there's no other reason why people would be pushing certain things like this, but being very vague about it. Maybe she'll expound.
Dismayed by the amount of money that marketing can give you.
Sounds almost like a very veiled threat. I can tell you that doesn't go over very well with people. Certainly won't go over well with the consumers who are going to see the effects of that in the product. They're just going to not buy the product, as they shouldn't, as is their right.
If you're not in AAA, and if you're indie or if you're freelance and you're building a budget because you still have to and you're writing up a pitch, I would say that you should consider adding the necessary funds for representation into your scope as you would any other item. When we budget as Sweet Baby Inc., we actually add about 10% of our entire narrative development budget to hire storytellers and collaborators who can kind of help us see where our blind spots are. And if they...
So let me ask you something. If you're making a game based in Norway and Norwegian history, does this still stand? What if you're making a story based on Vikings, Viking men? Are you gonna need Mexican people and Nigerian people to work on the project too to see the blind spots in Viking men culture? A bunch of Viking dudes on a ship? Like, I mean, I joke, but I don't, because people like this woman would see that and would still have a problem with it because the people behind it are white. And you know I'm not lying because we've seen it. They've been very open about it. She was open about it. She didn't hide it. At least I'll give them that. They're being honest and being open about the kind of people that they are or the perception that they have. And that's not okay. If you want to tell a diverse story about people from different ethnic backgrounds, you should have collaborators within that sphere so that people can tell the stories from different cultures, can have something to add. You can make it as realistic as possible and immersive as possible. That makes sense. But you can't have people from Ireland and from Norway and other white cultures, white countries, and then have a problem when an all-white cast, or not all-white cast, but an all-white crew are working on it. Also, if you are the best at something, we're in a time right now where if you're the best at something, you're gonna get chosen. We've already had a black president or a half-black president. We have amazing programmers and animators, people, engineers from all different ethnicities. Nobody cares. You have so many people in the media, entertainment industry who are not white and they are the best at what they do. But now when you make it about just hiring people based off of the way they look, now you're actually doing a disservice to minorities because you're basically telling them you don't have to try very hard. We'll just hire you based on your color. So now the people who have come before them that were minorities and worked their asses off to be noticed and chosen, worked so hard, and they are now the faces and the representations of people like them, people from their state, their country, what have you. People look at that, they're like, ooh, you rep in Rwanda, good job. You know, you rep in Jamaica, good job. Now you're going to be hiring people that are probably half as qualified, and they're now going to be the face of people from their region, and other people are going to see them and think that that's the quality of people, of everyone like that, because this is how human beings are. They look at that like they look at people from the city, these tourists that go to these other countries, and then they think that all Americans are rude and disgusting. I used to think that too. See people that go to my country and they're like very entitled, and I'm like, ew, do they have no pride? Look at them. I come here and people are like that in the city, and then I go to different places, especially in country, rural areas. People are polite and respectful and not racist like people were saying they are, or faced more racism in the city. Like, you start to realize, wow, the people who are the loudest usually represent the loudest. So you're doing a disservice to the people you claim are marginalized by hiring people that are not as qualified, just solely on the color of their skin, in which they don't have to work as hard because they're just chosen based off of their phenotype first. How is that helping these marginalized groups? Then everybody that looks at them, you know what they're gonna think? You were chosen for one reason only, and it ain't because of your skills. Even if you're very talented, everybody else is going to be looking at you, and they're going to be thinking, there's the charity. Oh, there's the freaking quota person. They were only chosen because they're Chinese. They're only chosen because they're black. Oh, we all know why they got this job. Bob over there, who went to school for 15 years to do this, way better animator, but he's white and he's straight. So no, let's choose the person who's not as qualified as him, who's not white or straight, gay maybe, trans, black, Hispanic, whatever the case is, just can't be a white dude who's straight. And let's say those people are not as good as Bob. That's fine. And then what happens is the bar just gets lower and lower and lower because humanity works this way. If you don't have to try, you're going to take the path of least resistance. And you're asking now a lot of people why the writing in so many modern movies are so consistently bad. It does not help marginalized groups. You were doing a disservice to them, and you're making them a laughingstock. Maybe it started as a noble effort, but it definitely isn't one now.
They aren't in this industry because a lot of the time people are like, uh-oh, they're not in this industry. We can actually bring them in to help as consultants for areas where, like, you know, they can start learning, we can help them learn, they can help us learn. So even if it's just a small part of a project, all parties are going to gain something, and you're going to get a perspective you really need. Next, if you're in communications or you're part of that like scared marketing group, assume your players want new stories and treat representation as a facet of innovation, as a selling point. Leverage your game's ability to explore new perspectives.
I like what she says here. This is not a bad thing. One of the things I love about writing is I try to find, like, when I'm writing a story, I always imagine different scenarios. What if I was in this situation and, on Mars, and people were on Mars, and the babies that were born on Mars, something like All Tomorrows, they just start mutating and eating the freaking parents. And now there's a problem. Now you're either going to have to, now most of humanity has died out, but it's existing in these things that are killing off the rest of humanity. Do you kill all of them off and try to help old humanity? Or do you let them live and leave them alone so humanity can continue in these things, but knowing that they're going to prey on the previous version of humanity, which is us? Someone's going to steal that story, I swear to God. That's why I didn't want to say anything, but it doesn't matter, whatever. But I like those ethical conundrums and those type of diverse stories. I like stories imagining that I'm in another country. I will usually look up the history of that country or look up certain of parts of that culture to understand some of it, just to say that I did something from this country, because you don't hear a lot of people telling stories of someone who lives in Cambodia. Like, it's wonderful, and you can identify with that person who you're writing as past just their ethnicity. I think that people have to remember that you don't have to look like someone else for you to understand them. We're all human. If it's impossible for you to empathize or identify with someone just because they don't look like you, that's kind of racist. It's almost like we're all human and we should look past skin color to be able to relate to each other, so you can understand why people have a problem with people who are pushing, like, it must be diverse for it to be a good story. Like, you can still have a diverse story without the person having to look like you, or without an all-white cast having to squeeze in that one black person just to say that they squeezed them in, so you can tokenize them, and everyone knows that they're there just because. And then you end up making people resent them because of that. That doesn't help. If you're gonna tell a good story, tell a good story, but don't be like, representation must be at the forefront. No, then you're gonna be more worried about offending people than telling a good story. And if you're so worried about offending everyone around you, you can never let your creativity be free. It's like having your creativity on a ball and chain where it can't move more than 2 inches. Then what is the purpose of even telling a story?
And there's always going to be a positive impact in assuming this. Finally, if you're a studio building a team, hire diverse creators and pay them. Please pay them.
If you're hiring them, why would you not pay them? That's what hiring is. If you're employing them, you're intending to pay them. Why would she even say that? That doesn't make any sense. Is she suggesting that if you hire diverse creators, that you're not going to pay them because they're diverse? And what does that even mean? I can have 4 different white people, one from Scotland, one from England, one from Ireland, one from Greenland. Those are diverse people. They just happen to all be white. Does that count? I can hire someone from El Salvador. I can hire someone from Barbados. I can hire someone from any other country that has no white people. Are you expecting people that hire them are not going to pay them? Like, when you hire someone, you get them for a job, it's obvious that you're going to pay them. Like, you should. That's illegal if you don't.
And don't stop there either. Don't just go into creatives and with, narrative and stuff. Make it across your team, because there are a lot of unconscious biases in other areas. But always consider the ways that you can support all of your people. So, like, don't just put, we need diverse input. explain how you're going to support them once they're there.
I'm sorry, like, maybe at the core of what she's saying, it's noble. I understand. There's some altruism there. Maybe. I don't know this person. But call me crazy. I feel like the gaming industry and the movie industry, that's not the place to do this. Like, maybe I'm being stupid. Maybe I'm being ignorant. I'll give some leeway for that. I just feel like this feels like activism. It kind of feels like you're out there and you want to talk about biases, ethnic biases, which is fine because I'm not going to say that those don't exist. They obviously exist. Humans are human beings anywhere you go. There's always going to be biases. There's always going to be prejudice. Doesn't matter where you go. But there's a time and a place. Like going on a game and being like, let's all get all the diverse people together and hear everybody out in their life story and hear them. This is not a freaking Amy meeting. This is not a freaking like potluck. It's a game. People are here to make a game. Like I don't understand. I've never made a game, so I don't know. But I figured it's just like any other job when someone says, here's a story we want to tell. Here's a product we need to pay. We need to create. We're going to make something that people, black, white, red, whatever, are going to want to play and enjoy. Can people enjoy this? They want to see things go pew pew and things go scoot scoot and things go skeet skeet. Fine. Has nothing to do with their skin color. Why are we talking about the diverse creators and hearing them and all that? That's weird. This is not the place. Now you understand why people are upset when you have people like this behind consulting games, because they're putting the focus on the entirely wrong area.
Because none of what we're doing is about ticking boxes or about a veneer of wokeness. We actually have to care about making...
Okay, but do you though? That's exactly what you're doing. You just went play by play, telling people that you're basically ticking boxes. This is what you should do. Hire diverse creators. Listen to them. Make sure they're diverse. Make sure this and that. That's exactly what you're doing.
This stuff. So to close, for those of you who are marginalized, whatever space you occupy in this industry, and I want you to know that I see you and I recognize you and I'm doing...
Oh, Lord God. You know, it's very hard to ask people who are in business because video game creation, movies, TV, it's a business still. Hopefully there's passion tied to that, but it's still a business. And if you're telling people or threatening them to meet a quota, how do you expect them to care? And I'm going to trigger people with this, but it's like a religion. And the deity tells you that you must worship him or her. And if you don't, no problem. I got you, but you're going to go and burn for all eternity. Just saying. It's your choice though. Tell me how in the fuck does that make people care? What is going to happen is this weird Stockholm syndrome where people are going to be fake. And the people who are actually racist are going to now go into hiding to pretend that they're not. And you might be actually putting people in harm's way. I say that lightly, you know, just as a freaking joke because she's always using that word harm. But you're putting people, working with these people. And imagine a bunch of racist ass people. You don't want anyone to do anything with these people. You don't know that they are. And now you've put a bunch of ethnically different people with them because these racist people have to fill a quota. And now they have to pretend as though they care when they really don't because they were forced to meet a quota. And now you've put these marginalized groups in a situation where they're probably going to be mistreated because the people around them were forced to hire them. And maybe those people who were hiring them didn't even have a problem with them. Maybe they were a little bit prejudiced, but they're like, whatever. But now that they're forced to actually hire these people, now there's going to be, the resentment's going to be amped up types of time 1,000. And they're going to be like, frickin' ass, dumbass. Like, they're going to be so evil to these people in an underhanded way. They're probably going to make their freaking lives hell or find some way to do it, to get them fired, to get them to want to leave. And you're putting them in that situation because now these people aren't here because the creators of this game are seeking them out because they legitimately love their work. Now they're there because we need a Hispanic person and a Chinese person and a black person. Do we have all those people? Sure. Okay, great. How is that helping? How is it helping tell a good story? Oh, I don't get it.
Work along with you. And if I can suggest to you one thing is that you take kind of a moment to think about times when you have felt seen and representative and share them as loudly as you possibly can.
No, I don't need that. What are you doing? Like, projection. Projection. Bro, this is so cringe. Oh my God. This feels so insulting. Oh my God, you marginalized people. I want to let you know that you're heard and you're seen. And I feel your emotions with you. Let's all hug ourselves. Everyone wrap your arms around your shoulders. Give yourselves a warm hug. Recognize the energy within. Affirm that you are powerful and wonderfully made. Like, this is giving me cult vibes, bro. This is giving me this is triggering the whole church PTSD thing. It sounds exactly the same. It sounds exactly the same with a different skin. This is not okay. This is not the place. I'm always skeptical now and feel like people are overreacting with certain things. I possibly could be overreacting too, but I just don't see how this fosters a better world, better storytelling. And it clearly doesn't, because every time they lead with representation and diversity and all this stuff first in the lens of, we don't want to offend people. Everything must be safe. That can't be done. That can't be portrayed. That we can't say that word. The thumbs up sign is offensive. The story suffers. We've seen a result of that all the time. Most of the time, it fails. So, in so saying, what should we do about this? Let's just go back to the drawing board and do what we've always been doing. Look how many games have come out, how many movies and shows have come out where you actually had diversity, where you had people who came from all walks of life, different actors, who starred in movies that were badass. Denzel Washington didn't just become what he was. I mean, he was hot, so that's part of the reason. Let's not kid ourselves. He was freaking fine. But he's also a badass actor. Like, there's not a lot, like Tom Cruise, Denzel, Leonardo DiCaprio are probably like 3 of the people I can think of, dudes, who are hot, but also amazing actors. Okay, Tom Cruise, no. Christian Bale, that's what I'm thinking about, because they look the same to me. But they're actually really good actors, and they're good at what they do. The other guy, Magneto, what's his name? Michael Fassbender, another example. Matthew McConaughey, another example. Amazing actors who are beautiful. Even Will Smith. Did you see him in I Am Legend? Wow. Like, I used to have such a crush on Will Smith. And under the right director, he has got acting chops. He does. I don't know what happened to him in Suicide Squad. He was obviously there for the paycheck. He felt like he didn't want to be there. But he's a really good actor under the right person. Nobody cared what he looked like. Nobody cared. Like, Rush Hour. Like, this is one of the biggest franchises. I don't think I watch all the movies. I used to watch my father watch it. Cracking up. Nobody cared. My father watches a whole bunch of freaking martial arts movies. And Asian movies. And he's not Asian. My father is not Asian. So did he have to look like these people? When a father, what was it? One of them, I think, was a Chinese movie. Was it Ip Man? IP Man? I don't know how you say it. But one of them, his family got killed and he was depressed and he was forced to fight again, kind of like History of Violence, but the Chinese version. And my father identifies that guy so much. He doesn't care if he's Chinese. Like, this is the last thing on his mind. It's a dude. It's a man, and he can understand from his perspective as another man with a family what this guy's going through. John Wick, I'm not a dude, but I have dogs. I could understand why someone would want to go and shoot down everybody who killed my dog. Like, you don't have to actually be the same sex, same gender, same whatever to identify with someone. I think it's best when people are able to relate to those who look different than them. That's how we stop discrimination. Allowing people to see the humanity through the exterior of someone and still relate to them despite the differences. Trying to force feed people, look at this person. The person who's voicing this person must be black too. They must be gay too. Now you're putting everyone in a box and you're basically saying no one can relate to you unless they look like you. You're going backwards. Maybe that's not what this woman is doing, but based on how she presented this, that sure seems like what it is. And I can tell you it's not going to end well. That's not a good way to get people. You're overcorrecting. Let's just take a step back a few years to where everything was working and people were buying games and things were actually enjoyed. And let people's pockets dictate what they want and what works. Obviously, the games that have gone by and movies that have gone by weren't that bad because all of us are still standing and we're fine.